Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, hockey fans. It is a blistering 21 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Fahrenheit in gorgeous Bridgewater, Nova Scotia today. My name is Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to the slightly delayed Friday, April 22nd edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. Now, we're getting started a little late today. It's about 2:30 local time for me. Getting started a little late on the recording, and I'm all kinds of discombobulated today. I'm in a different place. I'm not wearing the same getup. I'm not wearing my hoodie and jersey. We're just all kinds of strange today. This is going to be a weird episode, I feel. Maybe it'll mean good things. Maybe it'll mean bad things. Who knows? But let's get into it. Let's talk about last night's games. We had 4 really excellent games last night, including our first series finally ending. And that's where we're going to start with the Detroit Red Wings in Tampa Bay taking on the Lightning for Game 5. Lightning coming into this one with a 3-1 lead in the series, and Tampa Bay wins it 1-0. What can I say, folks? You can't get any closer than that. Shots were 34-24 in favor of the visiting and unfortunately losing Red Wings. We got a slow start to this one shot-wise. We got some physicality, but really it's just kind of a track meet, back and forth. Not really a whole heck of a lot going on. The Wings start gathering a little bit of momentum, though, due to some early Lightning penalty trouble. No damage on any of those power plays. Peter Mrazek is the first goaltender between the two to really get tested. He stones Jason Garrison point blank. That would not be the first time that Mrazek, or would not be the last time, that Mrazek would get the best of Garrison, but he does stone him point blank, keeps this thing tied. Danny DeKeyser at the other end hits the post above Ben Bishop's blocker, so close to opening the scoring in this one. Neither team, again, really asserting a ton of dominance in the first period. First period shots were 9-8 Detroit. Hits were very close. Everything really close here heading to the second period. Dylan Larkin, young player, takes a bad tripping penalty on Coburn, but Bishop has to make a big save. Riley Sheahan sprung on a short-handed breakaway, not what you want to see if you're the Lightning, but Ben Bishop comes up big, stopping Sheahan on the breakaway. Bishop, again, now starting to become a little bit of the busier between the two goaltenders, has to stop a big slap shot from Eriksson. Kucherov gets hooked by Kyle Quincy, sends the Lightning to the power play. Once again, that Mrazek versus Garrison matchup. Mrazek is your winner one more time. He comes up big, another big save on Jason Garrison. The Wings win 3 straight face-offs here in the middle of the second period. They're really starting to get that push for the opening goal. Second period shots were 14-6 for Detroit, so they definitely have the edge there. That really ended up being the shot difference in the game, basically. Ben Bishop was tested in this second period. He was very, very solid. We got a goaltending duel on our hands, folks, and I wouldn't want this series to end, or a late game in this series to be any different. 2 really good goaltenders, and they're going shot for shot. The Lightning finally start getting into their game here in the third period. Not really with the physicality, but a big push in terms of shots and attempts on net. A lot of the third period, though, is kind of the same as the first. It is a track meet. It's a high pace. There are chances on both sides, and the Red Wings get their hearts broken. 18-17 into the third period. Inside the last 3 minutes, the Lightning open the scoring, your only goal of the game. It's Killorn with his third of the playoffs, Callahan with the assists, Killorn tipping in, Callahan centering pass. It's in the back of the net. Tampa Bay is up 1-0. The Wings pull Peter Mrazek in the last minute of the game. Jason Garrison takes a penalty. 6-on-4 now for the Red Wings, but they don't have their timeout as they lost a challenge, I believe, earlier in the game, or they might have taken a timeout earlier in the game. I can't remember now, one way or the other, but Detroit does not have their timeout. That does, I feel, play a role in the way this game ended. There's a point shot chance. Datsuk rushes in, unfortunately gets whistled down. A last-ditch effort, it just fails, comes up a little bit short. Ben Bishop holds the fort. He was easily the best player on both teams, really for either team here. Ben Bishop was your star, 34 save shutout. And due to that, the Lightning are moving on. Have we seen the last of Pavel Datsuk after the game? He was non-committal one way or the other. That'll be interesting to see as that plays out here through the offseason. Tampa Bay is moving on to the second round, 4-1 over Detroit. Let's stick to the Eastern Conference here and go back to Madison Square Garden. Pittsburgh at New York taking on the Rangers, game 4 of that series. Pittsburgh comes in with a 2-1 series lead, and Pittsburgh dominates the Rangers on their home ice 5-0. This game was not close. The only way this game was competitive was in shots. It was only 32-31 Pittsburgh. Unfortunately for the Rangers and their fans, Pittsburgh converts on 5 of those 32 chances. New York converts on none of them. The Rangers actually look good at first in this game, the first couple of minutes of the first period at the very least, but the Pens are definitely getting the better of the chances. Just a minute and 9 seconds into the first period, Pittsburgh gets on the board. It's Eric Fehr with his first of the playoffs, Lovejoy and Malkin picking up the assists, Fehr just crashing the net, picking up the rebound off the Lovejoy shot. Boom, minute 9 seconds in, it's 1-0. Early goals have really been one of the stories of these playoffs. The Penguins starting to play more physical. They're picking that up. They're really starting to get the better of the play here early, midway through the first period. Rick Nash interferes with Trevor Daley. The Pittsburgh power play so far in these playoffs at this point, clipping along at about 30.8%, and 7 minutes and 11 seconds into the first, Pittsburgh doubles their lead on the power play. It's Patrick Hornqvist with his 4th goal of these playoffs. Crosby and Malkin, the big guys, picking up the assist. Kind of a double tip. Malkin shot it, Crosby tipped it, Hornqvist tipped it after Crosby tipped it. Hornqvist with his 4th of these playoffs. Pittsburgh now up 2-0. This time it's the Penguins' turn to start getting into a little bit of penalty trouble. Really not a whole hell of a lot of a Rangers push, even on a power play or two. And then 16-11 into the first, Pittsburgh now tripling their lead. It's Sheary with his first of these playoffs, unassisted. He steals the puck, takes it down ice, on the dot, wrists it home. Lundqvist had no chance. Lundqvist did not look good in this first period. It is 3-0 Pittsburgh. The game is starting to get away from them. The Rangers, to their credit, try to push this thing in the late first period. Matt Murray with a desperation save post to post on the Stahlberg rebound. Great save by Matt Murray, keeping this thing scoreless on the Rangers side. Second period, we're starting to get a little more back and forth. The physicality is starting to pick up here a little bit. These two teams run into a little bit of trouble hitting the net. 4 straight attempts, 2 per side, that miss the net. Dominic Moore takes himself a holding penalty on Malkin. You cannot do that against this Penguins power play. 4 minutes into the second period, Pittsburgh now quadrupling their lead. On the power play, it's Malkin with his first goal of these playoffs. Crosby and Hornqvist draw the assists. Slap shot from the point. It beats Lundqvist again. And actually, Lundqvist, after this goal, he gets pulled. He gets the hook. The 10th time that Lundqvist has been pulled. Rangers finally starting to get a little bit of a push. Finally starting to get a little bit of momentum. And Tanner Glass kills it with a double minor. What have I been saying all damn playoffs about taking penalties to kill your own momentum? Glass with a double minor. The Rangers try to build a little bit of momentum back after killing that off. But the chances really, there's chances on both sides. They're not building any kind of consistency in their momentum. Into the third period, at this point for the Rangers, it's now or never. They start pushing, and again, JT Miller takes a slashing penalty, and the momentum gets killed by taking a penalty that is not necessary. 3 minutes and 28 seconds into the third period. If you're not going to learn, we're just going to keep teaching you. Pittsburgh on the power play. It's Malkin with his second of the game. Dumoulin and Bonino draw the assists. A tip on the slot pass from Dumoulin. The shot comes in. Malkin tips it home. 5-0 Penguins. Rangers are desperate, but too many shots are missing the net here. They're just throwing everything towards the net, but everything is flying wide. Nick Bonino takes a penalty. This is the Rangers' best shot to get at least on the board and get a little bit of face saved in this one. No damage at all. Pittsburgh rolls. 5-0 is your final. And here's just a microcosm of the night. If you were a New York Rangers fan, 19 minutes and 32 seconds into the third period, final 30 seconds of the game, Oscar Lindberg just takes a hooking penalty because why not? Pittsburgh now has a 3-1 series stranglehold here, heading back home for Game 5, looking to close it out on home ice. Oh boy, we're humming along here, aren't we? All right, let's keep it going. Anaheim at Nashville in Game 4 of their series. Nashville leading this series 2-1 coming in, and going out, the series is tied. Anaheim with a big 4-1 victory on road ice. This has been a road team series so far. Anaheim with the win ties the series at 2. Shots in this game 31-25 for the hometown Predators. Just a minute and 2 seconds into the first period. One more time. We continue with the trend of very early goals. Anaheim gets on the board, and it's a guy that I called out earlier, either last episode or a couple of episodes ago. It's Ryan Getzlaf with his second goal of these playoffs. Perron and Bieksa draw the assists. Getzlaf crash in the net, picks up the rebound, tucks it in under Pekka Rinne. It is 1-0 Ducks. The Preds start pushing back immediately here, trying to establish the physical game early. They're definitely the more physical of the two teams. But Pekka Rinne is the first goaltender that really has to come up with a big save. And Sammy Vatanen for the Ducks, right in the slot, basically untouched. Rinne has to come up with a big save to keep this thing a 1-goal game. Predators attempt 6 shots late in the first period. Most of them get blocked. The Ducks did a really good job of getting down and blocking shots in this game. It's still 1-0 heading into the second period. Second period opens up with Ryan Garbett taking an immediate penalty, pretty much as was within the first minute of the second period. Nashville with 4 shots on goal on that power play. No damage. Frederik Andersen standing tall. Pekka Rinne is called upon again to make a big save, this time on David Perron on a Ducks power play. Rinne keeping his team in it. Middle of the second period, Nashville now is the team starting to get a little bit of the better of the play, and wouldn't you know who won the pony? 11 minutes and 26 seconds into the second period, Nashville ties this thing up. It's Mike Fisher with his first of these playoffs. Wilson and Weber draw the assists. Wilson from behind the net puts the puck out into the slot. Fisher buries it behind Frederik Andersen. We got a tie game. We got ourselves a hockey game in the Music City. The Ducks now start getting a bit of the better of the chances. More chances and more quality chances, despite the fact that the Predators are still keeping their edge in terms of physicality and the hitting game. Dupre and Arvidsson get a couple of offsetting penalties here. A slashing penalty on Dupre, while Arvidsson gets nailed for an embellishment. That's a pretty good trade for Nashville. You get Simon Dupre, a guy that plays big minutes for the Ducks, important minutes for the Ducks. You get him off the ice for a guy that maybe even some Preds fans haven't heard of. That's a pretty good trade for Nashville. But 17 minutes and 4 seconds into the second period, on the 4-on-4, Anaheim takes the lead. It's Thompson with his second goal of these playoffs. Raquel and Vatanen with the assists. Thompson gets the puck in front of the net, and he delays. He's got Rinne down and out, and then just slips it underneath him. And you can see Rinne was so frustrated with that because, Thompson just plain outthought him. Just plain got the better of him there. Just waited and waited and waited, and then saw his opening and just tucked it right under him. Just right along the ice. Just boop, thank you very much. And Anaheim is now up 2-1. Anaheim now deciding to kind of pick up on some of the physicality here. They start throwing a couple of hits, but this time they do generate off of it, where the Predators were really having trouble doing that really throughout the whole game. 18:56 into the second period, under 2 minutes since the second goal to take the lead. Anaheim doubles the lead up to 3-1. It's Jamie McGinn with his second of the playoffs. Stewart with the only assist. Stewart basically puts the puck out in front, and it's just hovering in midair, and McGinn kind of chops it like if you got an axe in your hand and you're chopping wood. McGinn basically just turns around and chops it. That's a grinder's goal right there. McGinn chops it out of midair on the rebound. It's in the net. Anaheim now up 3-1. Predators may be getting a little frustrated after giving up that goal. Mike Ribeiro takes himself a stupid slashing penalty. Literally 10 seconds left in the second period. Like, what did you plan on accomplishing there? No damage on that penalty kill. The Preds start pushing again in the early third period. After the penalty, they actually force Thompson to take a tripping penalty. Anaheim getting another penalty after that. So Nashville are being gifted chances here. They're being given chances to get back in this game. The Ducks, to their credit, keep blocking. 3 blocks to just 1 shot on goal on that second penalty, that second power play for the Predators. They keep pressing down by 2 goals. 5 more shot attempts after the power play, but only one of them get on goal. A couple of misses and a couple more blocks for the Ducks. The key here for the Ducks winning this game was their ability to get down and block shots. They're starting to look fairly content to kind of play the defensive game, sit on a lead, but hey, you get given an opportunity, you might as well take it. 16:52 into the third period. Anaheim with their 4th and final goal, putting this game out of reach, is Andrew Cogliano, a guy that I've given some praise to. 2nd goal of these playoffs. Jacob Silfverberg with the only assist on that goal. Silfverberg with the steal, feeds Cogliano in the slot, little wrister, it's in the net. It's 4-1. Shea Weber unfortunately takes a very late third period double minor for roughing David Perron. That killed any potential chance of even a couple of momentum stealing goals towards the end of this game. Ducks win. Ducks tie it up. Ducks have all the momentum heading back home. And our final game, which was head and shoulders the game of the night, Chicago in St. Louis, trying to stay alive in Game 5 of their series against the Blues. Chicago coming up with a huge 4-3 victory in double overtime. Double overtime. I'll say it one more time. Double overtime. Awesome. What a game. Shots were 46-34 in favor of St. Louis. St. Louis now leads that series 3-2, heading back to Chicago for Game 6. The stat of the series, as far as I'm concerned, the Blues have had at least 40 hits in every single game this series. Now, they were less physical in Game 5. I don't think they got to 40 hits until double overtime, but they did get there. But 40 plus hits in every single game. It means the Blues are doing their job, because what you have to do against this Blackhawks team is you have to wear them out. You have to play the physical game, and you have to beat them at the physical game, and that will give you a good chance to beat them on the scoreboard. That's what St. Louis has been doing. Unfortunately, didn't get it done in this game. The Blues do test Corey Crawford very early. Nice little tic-tac-toe play, but Crawford comes up big with the stop on Alexander Steen. No surprise here, the Blues start ramping up the physicality, and it's basically through Steve Ott, who is just cancer to every other team in the NHL except the Blues. If he's on your team, you love him. They're generating chances off of their physicality, a lot of that coming from Steve Ott. The Blackhawks kind of become equal to the physical task here in the first period. Between 12:05 and 13:11 of the first period, there are 8 hits recorded. 8 hits in 1 minute and 6 seconds. 5 of them belong to Chicago. So Chicago showing St. Louis we're not going to be pushed around. I'll tell you, throughout the first period, most of the shot attempts on both sides of the ice really are not getting through. They're either missing the net or they're being blocked, or things like that. Most shot attempts aren't actually getting through on goal. Chicago's got 2 shots at it really late in the first period. Brian Elliott shines, sending the thing into a scoreless second period. The Blues with 5 chances on an early second period delay of game power play. No damage there either. Corey Crawford playing really well. We got ourselves another goaltender duel. Jori Lehtera slashing Kruger. Hossa gets stopped in very tight by Brian Elliott. Another big save. Another game-saving, potentially, play. Then we see quite possibly the worst penalty that I've seen in this series. It's Artem Anisimov tripping up Patrick Berglund in the offensive zone. And I've talked about it before. Offensive zone penalties, they're just the worst. They're just, might be the worst thing to see in hockey. You're in the offensive zone, you're potentially getting chances, and oh geez, you take a dumb, unnecessary penalty. It's just the worst. Anisimov should be shaking his head. However, 11:32 into the second period, Chicago short-handed. They get a 2-on-1 between Hossa and Hjalmarsson. Hossa with the goal, short-handed goal, his first of these playoffs. He needed to step up. That would not be the last time when we're talking about this game that I will be talking about someone stepping up big time. Marian Hossa with the goal, Hjalmarsson with the assist, 2-on-1. Hossa keeps, wrists it home, 1-0 Chicago. The St. Louis crowd barely has enough time to stop rabble-rousing about giving up a shorthanded goal when on the exact same power play less than a minute later, 12:29 into the second period, St. Louis ties the game. It's Jaden Schwartz with his third of these playoffs. Pietrangelo and Colton Parayko pick up the assists. A slapper from the top of the face-off circle. Jaden Schwartz, boom, he blows it by Corey Crawford clean, and this game is tied at 1. The Blues start picking things up on the defensive side. They're starting to limit Chicago's chances until 15:24 into the second period. Chicago gets the lead back. It's Artem Anisimov making up mostly for that offensive zone tripping penalty. He gets the goal. It's Anisimov's second of these playoffs. Panarin and Teravainen pick up the assists. Anisimov picks up the Panarin rebound, puts it home. It is now 2-1 Chicago. And Chicago does something that we've only seen a few teams really be able to do, is after they take a lead, a one-goal lead, they keep pushing. Taves has 2 great chances in on goal. And then 19:59 into the second period, there was, I believe, 0.4 seconds left on the clock in the second period. It's Artemi Panarin. He blasts it home, beats the buzzer, his second of these playoffs. Kane and Taves, the big guys, picking up the assists. Just a slap shot from the point, just kind of going away. Again, just imagine a buzzer beater in basketball. This was the hockey equivalent. Just a slapper from the point, less than a second left. It goes in. They did go upstairs to take a look at it, but the puck was in the net with plenty of time to spare. Panarin with his second of the playoffs, and Chicago leads this thing 3-1, and that is a back-breaking goal. But the Blues, to their credit, come out humming to start the third period. 7 of the third period's first 8 shots belong to the St. Louis Blues, and then eventually they do get one of those to go in the net. 6:57 into the third period, St. Louis cuts the lead to 1. It's Robbie Fabry, the rookie, with his first career playoff goal. Pietrangelo picks up the assist. Fabry basically just brings the thing right down the middle and puts a wrister on, and boom, it's in the net. Robbie Fabry with his first career playoff goal. St. Louis is within 1. The big guns for Chicago try to respond. Taves and Kane, they've got a 2-on-1. Taves across to Kane, and he just fires it over the net. Great chance, probably Kane's best chance of the game to this point. But St. Louis really dominating shots at this point. The shots at this point in the third period were 11-3 St. Louis. 14:50 into the third period, St. Louis continues and ties the game. It's David Backes, his second goal of these playoffs. Pietrangelo and Fabry picking up the assists. Backes, just a nice little tip on the Pietrangelo wrister, and it just trickles and just caught Corey Crawford going the wrong way. He couldn't get back for it. It's in the net. David Backes ties this game. The Blackhawks take a really bad too many men on the ice penalty late in this game. The St. Louis power play humming along at 35.7% to this point. Chicago survives that penalty, and we are going to overtime. An overtime where the Blues start with early pressure, 8 shot attempts in the first 5 minutes of overtime. Give it up to Corey Crawford, man. Crawford played so well in this game, and he started looking exhausted, just like the rest of the team at certain points in this overtime. But he holds the fort on some dangerous attempts. He makes a couple of key saves. On the midway point of the first overtime, the Blackhawks pretty well get their best chance, crash in the net. But unfortunately, they then turn around and ice the puck. That's very, very dangerous in overtime. The Blues are still controlling most of the play. Chicago kind of starting to even up the chances a little bit. Crawford stoning Jori Lehtera and Vladimir Tarasenko. 2 unbelievable saves by Crawford to keep this thing tied. He saved the game for them. Shots in the overtime period, 11-6 in favor of the Blues. And we are going to double overtime. A far more balanced beginning to the second overtime period. Patrick Kane gets on a rush, just misses the net, but then 3 minutes and 7 seconds into the second overtime period, it is the much maligned Patrick Kane who wins it for the Blackhawks, picking up his own rebound after he kind of wraps himself around the back of the net, tucks it home behind Brian Elliott, who was out of position. Elliott tried to argue that he was interfered with. The league and the review officials did not see it the same way. Patrick Kane gets the goal. Richard Panik picking up the assist there. Patrick Kane wins the game for the Blackhawks. How many times can you say that? And he keeps the Blackhawks alive, heading back to Chicago for Game 6, now only down 3-2. No real news and notes to talk about from around the league, so let's just get into previewing tonight's games. We're going to start with Philadelphia at Washington, where Washington is up 3-1 with a chance to close the series out on home ice. This game is set to begin 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's available on CBC and NBCSN in the United States. Your likely goaltending matchup, Michael Neuwirth for Philadelphia, taking on Washington's Braden Holtby. The Flyers turning to Michael Neuwirth in Game 4. I was partially critical of that potentially when it might have happened. Quite frankly, it was the right call. Neuwirth goes 31 for 32, 8 of those 31 saves coming against Washington's best players. Neuwirth played a really good game, and it ended up being the right choice, I guess, at that point in the series to turn to him for the Flyers. But I look at that Game 4, and the Capitals just felt lethargic to me, really for the first half of that game. Almost like they didn't want to be there, like it was almost kind of a formality. That will not happen again in Game 5. This coaching staff is too good to allow that to happen in Game 5. And, I mean, Washington definitely wants to close this thing out, because the last thing you want to do is give Philly momentum to go back home in a Game 6 situation. Special teams have completely failed the Flyers in this series. They need to do one of two things. They need to either learn how to play on the penalty kill, or they need to be more disciplined and not give Washington those chances. They absolutely need to keep the Capitals off the board on special teams if they want to win this game. Nobody's really standing out for Philadelphia. They only have 3 players on their roster with more than a single point. Somebody needs to stand up, whether it's Giroux or Voracek or Wayne Simmons or Gostisbehere, or somebody has got to step up and take the lead for these Flyers, or they're going to go home. But quite frankly, I think they're going to go home tonight. I think Washington wins this thing. I'm going to give it to them by a score of 3-1. I like the series to end tonight on Caps home ice. The other Game 5 tonight in the Eastern Conference sees the New York Islanders taking on the Florida Panthers in Florida. This series now tied at 2 games apiece. Game begins at 8 p.m. Eastern, available on Sportsnet in Canada, as well as CNBC in the United States. Thomas Greiss for the Islanders and Roberto Luongo for the Panthers. That's your likely goaltending matchup. And this is Luongo's chance to really outduel Greiss, for one, and for two, to really take control of this series. I know I've been really critical of Luongo, and you're probably sick of hearing it, but this is his chance. I mean, your series is tied. This is your chance. Outduel the guy on the other end and take control of this series. The same thing goes for Thomas Greiss, but let's be honest, Thomas Greiss has been winning this series. It's really Luongo's time, and it's his chance to show that he is the better goaltender between these two and take control of this series. The Panthers finally got some secondary scoring, which I've been talking about. Alex Petrovic, Teddy Purcell, they finally found that secondary scoring, and I want to see if they're going to keep that going tonight, or if that was just kind of a one-game abhorrence. Jonathan Huberdeau, speaking of guys who are not secondary scoring, Jonathan Huberdeau is a difference maker here for the Panthers. 7 shots in Game 4. He currently leads the team with 23 in 4 games. He is playing super, super well. He's a difference maker for the Panthers. If they can get him going early, it's going to be a long night for New York. On the other end, let's talk about John Tavares for a second, because it seems like nobody is. Very quietly, John Tavares is having himself a hell of a playoff. Almost way too early Conn Smythe front runner good playoff. 3 goals, 4 assists, for 7 points. He's got 19 shots to lead the Islanders. He's 62.5% from the face-off circle. John Tavares having himself a nice little playoff, and anywhere that the Islanders go in this playoff, in this series or beyond, it's going to be on the back of John Tavares. I like the hometown Panthers tonight. I like them to take control of this series finally, show why they won that division. I like the Panthers tonight by a score of 3-2. Let's take a trip down to Texas now. Minnesota and Dallas for Game 5 of that series. Dallas has a 3-1 stranglehold on the series. Game begins at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Available on Sportsnet 360 in Canada, as well as NBCSN and certain Fox Sports stations in the United States. Dubnyk versus Niemi is going to be your likely goaltending matchup here. Dallas winning Game 4 off of a goalie change. And I still don't know about it. I still don't know whether it was the right call to change to Antti Niemi. I mean, obviously it worked, but I still don't know if it was the right call. I mean, I don't think Lehtinen did much of anything to lose the starting spot, or Niemi did much of anything to win the starting spot. I mean, again, it's kind of hard to argue with results. So great, Niemi's got it, and Niemi won that Game 4 for them and put them in a position that they can end the series tonight. So again, ultimately, I guess I won't argue with results, but I can't help shaking the fact that it was kind of unfair to Kari Lehtinen. Tyler Seguin, of note, will miss Game 5. This will be his second consecutive missed game. I believe his third consecutive missed game. And it was still stupid. It was still stupid to have brought him back in a series that you were really not at much risk of losing. It was still stupid to have brought him back when you did, and now you've missed him for at least 2 games, if not 3. John Klingberg, I think, is a guy that needs to step up for the Dallas Stars. Very young defenseman, had himself a hell of a season this year. No points and a -4 for one of your defensemen who's chewing up a lot of very important minutes in these playoffs. Now, he does have 6 shots. He's got 6 shots in 4 games, which for a defenseman really is not that bad. Offensive defenseman, maybe you want to see a couple more. But I think Klingberg is a guy that really does need to step up here for the Stars. In terms of the Wild, Jason Pominville is the key for this offense. 3 goals on 11 shots in these playoffs. Slight defensive liability at a -1, but, hey, he's putting the puck in the net, so that's what matters. Pominville is going to be the key for the Wild to get him going early, and the key for the Stars, if you can keep Pominville down, not a lot of offense going on that team outside of him. I think that's what happens tonight. I think Pominville is going to see Dallas's best defensive players all damn night, and I don't think Minnesota's going to have much of an answer for it. I like Dallas in a shutout tonight. I like Niemi to shut out the Wild. I'll take Dallas 2-0, and I think Dallas wins this series in 5 games on their home ice, which I believe, if I scroll down here a little bit, scrolling, was my initial prediction was Dallas Stars winning the series in 5 games. I think that can happen tonight. Let's see what happens. And our final game of the night, the late game, sees San Jose traveling to LA to take on the Kings. San Jose leading this series 3-1. They are in great shape here. Game begins at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBC in Canada and CNBC in the United States. Jones and Quick, one more time, I mentioned it before, that's the marquee goaltending matchup so far of these playoffs. And the Kings, kind of the same way as the Flyers. The Kings either need to do one of 2 things. They need to be more disciplined, or they need to figure out a better penalty kill, because the Kings gave up 3 power play goals in Game 4 to lose that game. They got to figure things out here one way or the other. Either don't take the penalties or figure out how to kill them off. Marian Gaborik in Game 4 arguably had his best game of these playoffs, but I did notice a bit of a regression in play from both Milan Lucic as well as Jake Muzzin, and that's 2 very important players for the Kings. Those 2 need to have bounce-back games here in Game 5 if the Kings want to stay alive in this series. The Sharks' best players, for the record, are being the Sharks' best players, especially in that last game. Those 3 power play goals, who'd they come from? Pavelski, Marleau, and Burns. Arguably the 3 best players on the Sharks team. Obviously, you got to put Joe Thornton in there as well. But Pavelski, Marleau, and Burns, they all connected on the power play. The Sharks' best players are being their best players. And it also ends with the last line of defense, the guy in the crease. And my big question, can Martin Jones not only close out an elite team in a playoff series, but can he beat that elite team in their home building for a 3rd time in a row? That's a very difficult thing to ask a very young goaltender. I don't think it's going to happen tonight. I like the Kings to stay alive in this series. I actually think it's going to be a bit of a higher scoring game than we're used to in this series. I'm going to take the Kings by a score of 4-3. This might go into overtime, it might not, but I like the Kings 4-3 to stay alive in this series, send it back to San Jose for Game 6. Okay, folks, that is going to do it for the Friday, April 22nd edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. I apologize that at a couple of points in this show, my voice kind of started to go there a little bit. I was guzzling some water just trying to keep it going here, but we got through today's episode amidst all of the weird changes in location and wardrobe, but we'll try to do a little bit better tomorrow. We'll be back in our regular location tomorrow. As always, thank you guys very much for the support, and a special announcement if you stuck around this long to listen to the entirety of the podcast. Beginning in the second round, I'm going to be looking for some people to maybe come on and do a couple of minute guest spot. Basically, every day, I'd like to have a different person come on and we'll talk just a little bit about either last night's games or how you felt about the playoffs so far, or basically whatever you want to talk about. That's what we're going to put on the podcast. So I'm looking for some people that might be interested in doing a guest spot for a couple of minutes. Now, we are going to have some YouTube prognosticators, some of my brethren in the YouTube prognostication game. I've got a couple of them that I've spoken to and a couple of them lined up to do some spots. One more time, that's not going to be until the second round begins, because we're going to have fewer games to talk about, so we've got to fill some time somehow, right? So I'm going to have some people coming on and just basically just talking shop about hockey, and I'm super excited about it. I hope you guys will be too. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Friday, April 22nd is in the books. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you again tomorrow.